Welcome to Manned Up Conversations, where we connect with evolving men to discuss issues around masculinity and manhood, and also provide tools to help us be better for our society. Welcome to it. My name is Kauhelo Haviani, and I'm here with Captain Adam Meyers. This is I'll call it a very deep episode that we're about to get on. And I think before we dive in, we have to kind of frame today's conversation a bit differently, because Captain Meyers reached out with a very personal message and story that I think it cuts through the exterior of law enforcement and reveals, I think, a picture that we don't really see. The more emotional and psychological side of this work, right? Because we see law enforcement as people who are supposed to serve us, and because you wear a badge, we kind of believe that whatever you do, you kind of have license to do it, although there's more to that. And I think the story of yours shows that a lot of us are living in silence, but you managed somehow to speak to that. And from being, in a very traumatized place, in a very unhealthy place, going through panic, breakdown, and now, fully recovered. Would you call it fully recovered? We'll find out, right? But your journey, I think, mirrors a lot of what a lot of men in the world are going through. And, we might just think it's men in uniform, but it actually extends to men here, even myself in South Africa. So, you being a police captain in the US, I think it's fascinating to also for the cops here or the policemen in South Africa to kind of have a listen to this, because we don't really look at them again as people who experience problems. So, without, going into too much of a ramble, Captain Meyers, welcome.
Thank you, KG. I appreciate it. This is a great opportunity to share my experience, and I really hope that it helps someone.
Sure. And I thank you for, for the courage of showing up. And I like what you're wearing there as well. It's okay to talk about it, mental health, kind of not just advocating for yourself, but for your fellow men within the police force. But tell me, this is quite a big story, what we're talking about here, considering what's been happening with the Black, can we call it the Black movement in terms of Black Lives Matter and the stuff that's been happening with police on the ground in the US. And me talking to a police officer right now, it might seem like, okay, well, what are we doing here? But can you just share a bit of the story of why you're here?
Yeah, I'm here today because on Friday, April 8th, 2016, I was involved in a critical incident. We have a retail store here in the United States called Walmart. And what happened was there was a woman who was also having some mental health challenges. And she was a client at a state mental health facility, but she was out on a good behavior pass with a couple of her chaperones and went to the store. And when the chaperones told her it was time to leave, she refused to leave. She went back to the sporting goods section and removed a hatchet from the packaging and then started walking around the store, threatening customers and damaging merchandise. Now, I was at the police department working on a theft report. And when I was dispatched to Walmart, it wasn't a very emergent call because it initially came out to just being a person that was unwanted and they wanted the police help with removing them from the store. And we do that all the time. We do that at stores, at restaurants, on people's houses. It's really not that big of a deal. But as I was driving to Walmart, the closer I got, it became more and more emergent. First, they said she's trying to get a knife out of the packaging. Now she's in possession of a knife. When I got there, I realized that it wasn't a knife, it was a hatchet. And I made contact with her by the lawn and garden aisle, kind of by the health and beauty where the makeup and cologne and perfume is. And when she turned around and faced me, I realized that she had a hatchet in her hand. And I gave her multiple verbal commands to stop, to drop the hatchet. She just kept walking towards me. And then I ended up shooting her twice. I didn't think she was going to die. She did. Unfortunately, she died several hours later after trying to get medical treatment and surgery. She did pass away. And it's something that's with me every day of my life. I think about it one way or another. I never went to work wanting to shoot somebody. I never went to work wanting to kill somebody. But on Friday at 5:15 inside Walmart, there were hundreds of people in the store, and she was threatening, and she had a weapon that could kill somebody, and I had to shoot her. And I know I did the right thing. I know I was justified in doing it. I wish I wouldn't have had to, but I had to. I had no other choice. So it just is something that has affected me for many, many years after. And I suffered in silence for many, many years after the shooting. I was depressed. I was stressed. I was just suffering. And I did see counselors, but at first I thought they didn't help. And I felt, I can take care of it myself. I don't need to go talk to somebody. I don't need help. But I really did. Yeah. I really needed help. And that day, when I pulled the trigger, I know that I not only did I take her life, her name was Melissa. I took Melissa's life, but I also changed not only my life, but other people's lives who were in the store and who witnessed the shooting, maybe even people who just heard the gunshots. I mean, now those people forever have a story of, when I was at Walmart, I saw a police officer shoot somebody, or I was at Walmart and I heard gunshots. Yeah. Not only that, Melissa did have a 6-year-old daughter at the time. And at the time, my daughters, I have 2 daughters, and at the time they were young too. So it's not something that I'm not proud of it. I'm not happy about what I did. I had to do it, and I know I did the right thing, but it did affect so many people's lives. And with Melissa dying, I understand that, Melissa's daughter will never be able to see her mom anymore. And Melissa's mom will never be able to see her daughter anymore. And that's when I pulled the trigger, I know that things instantly changed. And then when I found out that she died, that changed everything too. I remember hearing about that, and I'm thinking, this changes everything. What next? I killed somebody. And I suffered in silence for so many years, until a couple years ago when I finally had enough and said, I really need to get the right kind of help to get better.
Man, Captain Meyers, man, you're pulling from a very deep place right now. And I just want to check with you, man. And if you need a bit of us to switch base a bit, or can we get a bit deeper into this? Are we good?
Yeah, we can keep going. That's fine. Yep.
Man. I mean, and you speak about suffering in silence after this incident, and you use several unhealthy coping mechanisms. I think there was some substance abuse in there was some sexual behavior in there, some self-harm. I mean, when you look back at that, what are some of the barriers that prevented you from seeking help maybe a bit earlier at the time? And what would you say to other officers who are going through this? Because I'm, as we speak right now, I believe there's a police officer who's just shot someone, and like you're saying, you do feel a sense of responsibility to do what you do, to act in the way that you did, because your life was under threat and this is your job, right? But then you have to live with this guilt now. Yeah. And that's the other side of it. Like I said in the beginning, we don't see that. And to hear you speak like that, again, it also says to me that, wow, man, I can easily judge a police officer's actions, right? I can easily judge someone who kills, whether it's justified or not. But it's the afterthought that we never really seem to think of, for the mental health issues that come with that. So yeah, just talk us through that. Yeah.
Right. I'm wearing a tactical vest, and a lot of police officers wear this. This is a removable patch. So I'll remove that. And you were right, KG. You talked about the different coping skills. And I have these right here: alcohol, casual sex, and drugs.
Wow.
I had many poor coping strategies, and they didn't help me. They only caused more stress, more anxiety, more depression. One thing that I did was I abused alcohol. And when I say I abused alcohol, I abused it. I have a simulated wine glass here. And what I would do was I would pour a glass of wine, and I would pour NyQuil, sleeping medicine, allergy medicine into it, and make my own cocktail. There were times that I even reached into the medicine cabinet, and like I said earlier, I have two daughters, and if they had prescribed liquid medicine, I would add that to my wine glass, and I would drink it and kind of sleep the day away. I have a bottle of 750 milliliter vodka right here. I would drink this in 30 minutes or less, not make a mixed drink. I would drink it and then sleep the day away. Another thing that I did that, I rationalized that it would take alcohol about 30 minutes to get in my system for me to be affected by it. Before I would go anywhere, I would stop by the local gas station and I would buy 2 or 3 of these little Fireball cinnamon whiskeys, and I would drink them in my car. And then I would either throw them out the window while I was driving to where I was going, or in the back of my car. And that's not right. That doesn't make any sense. That's wrong. I mean, I very well could have crashed my car. I could have hurt somebody. I could have killed somebody, but I just didn't care at the time. I was coping. I wanted to numb the pain. I wanted to feel better. And another thing that I did, for poor coping is casual sex. I mean, there were times that I would meet women online, and within 30 minutes we'd be having sex. And to me, sex is fun. It's playful. It's exciting. It feels good. But I was using it to numb the pain, to kind of ignore what I was going through. And there was one time a woman and I just got done having sex, and I'm laying in bed with her, and I'm thinking, what are you doing, Adam? This isn't you. Yeah. I didn't like myself. I started not liking myself. And I'm thinking, you have to stop this, because it only caused me more anxiety and depression. I was worried, am I going to get her pregnant? Am I going to get a STD? But even with all that worry, it wasn't enough for me to stop doing it. And then another thing is I tried marijuana for the first time. I mean, a lot of people tell me that's not a big deal, but I prided myself all my life in not doing any kind of drugs. But after my shooting, I didn't care. I wanted to find the next best thing that would numb my pain, that would help me escape. And that's what I did. And, you mentioned self-harm. There was one time I didn't want to work. There were many times I d't want to go to work. And, sure, I called in sick sometimes. And sometimes I even went to work and said, I can't be here, and I was sent home. But, in the United States, the 4th of July is Independence Day, and it's a really busy week for us. And I didn't want to work. I was really triggered. I was depressed. And so what I did was similar to this 12-inch wrench right here, I hit my knee several times to cause redness, abrasions, to make it look like I hurt my knee. And then I went to the doctor in the ER, the emergency room, and they did x-rays. They checked me out. They gave me a doctor's excuse not to go to work. And then I went to work and I said, hey, I can't work. And I got off of work. And that's not right. I was lying. And I think it was because of the stigma. If I would have went into work and told my chief, you know what, chief, my police chief, I would have said, I don't know why, but I really just can't work. I'm stressed. I'm depressed. I'm not healthy. I'm pretty sure it would have been okay. But because of that stigma with mental health, I was trying to think of, how can I get out of work? So, hey, I'll bang my knee up a couple times with a wrench, go to the doctor, get an official doctor's note, and get out of work. But not only did I lie to my chief, I was also letting down my brothers and sisters on the police department. It was a busy week. They needed me, and I lied to get out of work, and that's wrong. But that's where I was. That's where I was at that time. And quite frankly, I didn't care. I was selfish. I was thinking about myself, a lot of self-harm, anything to get out of work. And if I had to lie, I would lie. And that's something that I feel guilty about now. I'm shameful now, because that's not me. That was me then, but that wasn't me before my shooting, but it was me after my shooting. And I was doing things and coping in ways that I had never done before. And, I never knew that by pulling the trigger and shooting somebody or killing somebody that it would affect me like that. Sure. I knew that years ago when I became a police officer, because I've been a police officer for 23 years now. I knew, is that a possibility? Yeah, that could happen. But I never knew that I would be like this afterwards. And it's something that I struggle with even now, with how I acted. I'm better. I'm healthier. I don't do that now. But you mentioned, what would I like to say to other police officers and just
Yeah.
other people, no matter what your job is, even if you're unemployed, please don't suffer in silence. It's okay to talk about your mental health. There's so many people out there that are struggling. There's so many resources out there. Please reach out.
Mm. I like that. And I mean, you talk about just kind of like wanting to protect yourself, right? But
Yeah,
all I'm hearing is in wanting to protect yourself, you're actually doing more harm,
I
right?
was.
And
Yes.
in a way, that hurting yourself with that wrench or with that spanner, that's
Mhm.
some kind of manly thing to do, right? It's like, well,
Right.
let me see how much more pain I can take. But I wonder, in hindsight now, looking back, do you think any of that now wanting to reach out made you feel like, nah, I'm gonna be less of a man here? My brothers and sisters that I mentioned in the force are gonna look at me like, but what is he talking about? He's going through mental health issues, right?
Right.
So how much of that do you think played on your mind, and how do you think support would have looked like for you then? What kind of support would you say you kind of were looking for, if any?
Well, after my shooting, the support was great. I mean,
Mm,
family, friends, even complete strangers when I went back to work, because I was off of work for about 30 days while they investigated my shooting to make sure everything was cool and, you know, um, justified. And then I went back to work and the support was great. My
yeah.
police chief at the time, he almost immediately reached out to the media and said he supported me. And when I saw that, I printed it out and I have a picture of it right here that I put in a frame
Wow. Wow.
because when you're having a bad day, when you know your boss supports you, that's
Mm,
everything. You could go to work
mm,
and you could have a horrible day. And then I read this and I know one person really supports me. And he did, because I would hear him supporting me when he didn't know I was there. I could have been around the corner and hear him in his office saying, Officer Myers did this and I support him. And this is why he did that. So I knew he was being truthful about the way he supported me, not just telling people he did and not really support. He did. And I
for sure.
remember when I went back to work, I was in our break room and there was an officer rinsing his dishes, and he goes,
Mm,
"So how you doing, Adam?" And I'm like, "I'm okay, but I'm just, I'm a little worried." And he go, "Well, what about?" And I said, "I'm worried about you guys judging me." I was more
mm,
worried about the people I worked with judging me. And he looked at me and he goes, "We don't judge you, Adam. We know you. We know how you are. We know you did the right thing and we support you."
for
So
sure.
that's what I mean by I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to make up stories. If I would have just went to work and said, even if I didn't understand what I was going through, and would have just said,
Mm,
"I need help. I don't get it. I can't be here today. I'm sorry." It would
yes,
have been
sir.
okay. It would have been
Yes,
okay.
sir.
But you're right. That stigma and maybe the whole machismo and, hey, I'm a man and I'm
Mm-hmm.
invincible and I'm a police officer. I really do think that played a significant role in me deciding to lie and make stories up
Mm,
about not wanting to be at work or why I couldn't be at
mm,
work. But I didn't need to do that. And I know a lot
man.
of other people experience that too.
But I mean, and I see that in even myself a lot of times, right?
Mhm.
I know, like, I do this work, and I know I should reach out for help. I should speak to people, but there's just always this. I don't know if it's a Mandy thing, or I always expect people to kind of see what I'm going through, although
Right.
I'm working so hard to hide it at the same time. So I don't know, Adam. I don't know what do you see in terms of this feeling or emotional world of men, right? Are we a bit too nervous because we too, and you said it yourself, that we're too concerned of what others may say,
Yep.
and the detriment is obviously on us then.
Yep.
So how was this experience for your family then? I mean, you are out there then going through everything, and they're obviously seeing this, and dad, your daughters are saying, but dad, I don't know what's going on with you right now, but this is not the dad we know. So how was that
Right.
relationship going on at home?
It was it was challenging. It was a struggle. I mean, I lived 3.5, 4 hours away from my mom and dad and where my
Mm,
sister lived. So it was easy to hide what I was going through from them. I mean, they could tell that, hey, something's wrong with Adam. I have a gut feeling and I know he's not doing okay, but they really couldn't
hmm
prove it. So, and
hmm
unless they have something tangible, something that they can prove, which they couldn't, it was easy to hide it from them. Now, with my daughters, I did my best to hide it from them. There was a lot of times I was struggling and I was just honest with them. I would say, you know what, Daddy's in a bad mood today. I'm going to be in my room. If you need anything, please come and get me. Otherwise, if you're hungry, make something to eat, whatever. If you want to do something with your friends, let me know. But it was a struggle. I was divorced at the time. So I saw my daughters half the week, but they knew what I was going through. They knew that I was struggling. And, there was one time, which I'm ashamed of, but my youngest daughter was in gymnastics at the time. And I had been drinking alcohol most of the morning and into the afternoon. And I knew I had to go pick her up at her mom's house, which is like 20, 30 miles away. So I drove and picked her up. And then I was driving her to gymnastics, but I took a detour because I turned left when I was supposed to turn right. And I think I drove with her for about 40 miles in the car when I was impaired. And, and the reason why I can share that with you is because when she was graduating from college, I asked her, I said, honey, I don't know if you realize this, but when Daddy was driving you to gymnastics, I was intoxicated and impaired that time. And I really want to share that with people because it's real, it's honest, it's what happened. And she goes, of course, Dad, I love you. It's okay, tell the story. And now as I've gotten healthier and I've gotten better, we are more open about my past and how I was, and we communicate more. And that's therapeutic for me. It's therapeutic for them. I learned, I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize I was doing that. But yeah, it was a challenge. I was trying to hide it from everybody, but I don't think I was. I find it hard to believe that people didn't know I was struggling, because I was struggling for years. I think people did know, but they didn't know what to say or what to do, so they chose just not to do anything. I think their thought process may have been, well, if Adam needs help, he'll reach out. He'll ask us for help. He seems fine. So if he needs help, he'll reach out. But I wasn't going to. I was suffering. I really was suffering.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think about this now, since a learning that I also just kind of came into recently is, was it more about them not knowing or kind of trying to figure it out on the sides, or this idea of us not knowing how to receive help, when we do get it, right? That's another side of the coin that I never really think of in that way, that help is available everywhere. I'm just not really ready to receive that help, Right. So I don't know if you experienced that as well in that.
Yeah, I mean that's really important. You have to be ready to receive that help. There's a lot of resources out there. You can see a counselor, you can see a therapist. One of the things that I do is here's another patch. I love it. I see a therapist, and that's okay. It's okay. It helps me. Every Monday at 5 p.m., I'm sitting on the couch talking to my therapist, and it helps. I'm where I am today, KG, talking to you because I finally put myself first and got healthy. Another thing I do is I take medication. I take 20 milligrams of Lexapro. It's an antidepressant. It's right here. Every morning I wake up, I go to the bathroom, I pop a pill, I have a multivitamin, and then I just hit the ground running and I go on my day. It's okay. It helps me. But it took me years to get to where I am now because of that. I'm thinking, no, I can take care of it myself. I can handle it myself. I couldn't. And until I finally put myself first and said, I need help. I need the real kind of help that's going to get me better. I continued to struggle for years.
And that is, what I actually love right now is you using sort of the stuff you wear every day to advocate for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because it starts with me. It has to start with me. But you're also talking about stuff that we often stigmatize or we put shame around, right? Taking medication or going to see a therapist. So how important is it, do you think, now in terms of our languaging as advocates, right? I would call myself a men's health advocate in ways, to communicate our messages in ways that also don't further stigmatize, like go to therapy, as
Right.
opposed to go to therapy. I go to therapy or I see a therapist, right? And
Hmm.
that invites more of a question more than okay, well, he's a bit weird, it's more, well, what do you mean you see a therapist, right? So how do you
Right.
think this languaging around mental health advocacy kind of needs to change? I don't know if you're seeing it as it's a bit negative, right? It's more directive, as more of less invitational, or in the way that you're doing it. You making it cool for me just seeing it. And I think if I saw our police officers kind of wear messages like that, I would
Hmm.
humanize them a little bit more as well. Yeah, so I
Right.
don't know if you have something around that. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think one way to normalize mental health
Mm,
and to reduce that stigma is through personal and professional stories. So
mm,
if somebody is like your viewers will watch your
yeah,
podcast and learn and
yeah.
be like, wow, this guy's talking about it. I know this guy that was talking about it. I
Mm,
think that by sharing your personal or professional mental health experiences, people realize that they're not alone. People
yeah.
realize that they're not the only one that's going through what they're going through and struggling what they're struggling with.
Mm,
Um, there is that stigma. I think it'll always be there. I think it's getting so much better,
mm.
and I think it's getting so much better because of people like you and me
That's
sharing
right.
our experiences and supporting others. One thing that I have done is I'm a certified peer specialist in the state of Wisconsin. Once I
Mm,
found out that I could share my lived experience with other people,
mm,
I became certified as a peer specialist, and I am just everywhere. If anybody wants to listen to my mental health experience, I'll share it with them. If it's one
mm,
on one, like you and I are doing right now, or
mm,
if it's 10 people, or if it's through text messaging or email, I just want to help people. And I
yeah.
know what I went through was really challenging and it was
Mm,
rough for me.
mm,
But I think by sharing our experiences, that's one way to normalize it and make it okay.
yeah.
And a lot of people they don't want others to know that they see a therapist. That's okay. You don't have to get
Mm,
on a podcast. You don't have
mm,
to tell all your friends that you're doing it. You
mm,
can keep it private, but you're still doing it. Even if it's private and you don't tell anybody, you're still doing it and you're getting help. And that kind of help made me healthier.
yeah.
So I think the more we talk about it, the more we normalize mental health, I think it'll continue to get better.
And I mean, the more I listen to you now, and I want to go back into some of the desperate measures you took when you are avoiding work, and
Yeah.
and kind of self-injuring and making yourself sick and all of that. You know, what signifies this? I mean, it kind of speaks to the level of distress that you were going through at that time, right?
Right.
But did
Right.
you at any point realize that I'm hurting myself? Did it any point like ring to you at that time? Because right now we're talking in hindsight, and
Sure.
we're a little bit smarter now and a little bit healthier, so we can see the ways that we were wrong. But I don't know if you can recall at that time when you were in it. Could you recognize that harm? Yeah.
I think so. I think deep down I knew what I was doing wasn't working. It wasn't
Mm,
healthy.
mm.
When I drink a 750 milliliter bottle of
Jeez.
vodka in 30 minutes and
Jeez.
sleep the day away, I was a drunk. I knew that
Mm,
wasn't healthy. On top of
mm,
the medication I was taking at the time, I knew that wasn't healthy. There was one time I made a written contract to myself at like 9:30 in the morning that I would never drink alcohol again. I don't remember
oh.
writing this contract, but that must have told me somewhere inside that, hey, Adam, you got to knock this off because something ain't right. This isn't
Mm,
healthy. And what I'm going to share with you now is something that may be triggering to some people, but it's the real deal.
thank you.
Suicide.
Thank
What
you.
I have here, this is a plastic replica of my duty weapon. It's not a real gun. It doesn't have any working parts. Um, but I easily put my gun to my head a dozen times.
Mm,
And I did that when I was intoxicated. And what I would do was I'd remove the magazine, clear the chamber to take the bullet out, but then I'd put it to my head and pull the trigger because there's that metallic click that you would hear. And
mm,
I don't think that I wanted to die by suicide. I don't think I wanted to kill myself, but I don't till I just don't know why I did that. And some people said, well, maybe you were preparing to do it, but I don't think so. I mean, there were many times I went to bed and I prayed to God, please don't let me wake up. I don't want to wake up. What I'm going through is, I pray that I don't wake up. Well, I woke up, and that's why I'm here with you today. And I think the reason why God let me keep waking up is because of this advocacy. I think this is truly what I'm supposed to do. I believe that I'm supposed to share my experience with other people to help other people. And I think by making that one contract to not drink alcohol or putting my gun to my head at least a dozen times, I think then I knew something wasn't right. But I still wanted to continue to try to fix it myself. But I wasn't able to. And until I finally said, enough's enough, I'm done, I quit, I need some help, and I started getting better, I was suffering. I was doing that for years. And, with the gun to my head, I wonder how many times that I did that when I was so drunk that I don't remember. What if I would have forgot to remove the bullet from the chamber? What if I would have shot myself and died? People would have found me and they would have saw it was a suicide, and they probably would have thought, well, that's sad. Adam was depressed. We know he went through a shooting, but that's not what I wanted. At least I didn't think that's what I wanted. But how do you explain that? I don't know. I don't know how I can explain putting my gun to my head like that. That's nonsense. That's horrible. That's suicide. That's the real deal. You can't come back from that. And that's why I just really hope that when people are struggling, they reach out in whatever way possible, reach out.
I mean, I love that you also mentioned that you called out to God.
Yeah.
I don't know how big faith is in your world, but how much do you think that could have played a part in you being here as well, right?
Right.
They moments in a lot of people who overcome suicidal thoughts, who speak about these moments when I was in a really dark place and I either read a scripture or I saw this thing while I was watching TV, or there was the song playing and it just reminded me to stay alive. So do you feel like you had that moment as well?
I believe so. I mean, I was born and raised Lutheran. I believe in God. I went to church every Sunday. I don't go as much anymore, but I still go. I was confirmed, I was an acolyte in my church. I went to youth group. I do believe that. And the day after my shooting, I went to one of the local churches because I didn't know what to do. So I wanted to talk to a pastor. And I remember sitting down with him and saying, I just felt this is the right place. This is the right place to be. I don't know what to do. I just killed somebody yesterday. And we talked about it, and then I kind of went on my way, but then I started, suffering and poor coping. But I do believe that. I do believe there were signs all over the place. I do believe me praying not to wake up, and then every morning waking up, I think that was a sign alone by itself that you need to keep going at them. Don't give up. It will get better. Even though it doesn't feel like it now, it will. You just have to keep going. And I didn't know it was going to take years. I had no idea. But eventually it did get better, and I do. I truly believe God put me through this hell so I could get better, so I could help other people. I truly believe that's why I'm here speaking with you today and doing what I'm doing now, because that's God's plan. I mean, I could have all kinds of other plans.
Yes, sir.
And God and I had some conversations that I wasn't very happy with them. But I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed to be alive, and I'm blessed to be doing what I'm doing today. And I believe that's all because of His plan and what He wants me to do.
And I'm blessed to have this conversation with you, because this story it's quite moving. And despite hearing all of that you went through, receiving support from your team and even your captain at the time, you still got fired from your job, right? You still lost that job.
I
and I wonder what you felt about that experience then, because man, you guys are supporting me, and now I'm getting on the right track, and suddenly now I must go again.
Right.
How was that? Yeah.
That was rough. That's not even putting the right word to it. What happened is in December of 2021, I went to a training at a middle school, an active shooter training, and I was sitting there and we were watching a PowerPoint presentation about the different active shooters that have occurred in the United States and even in other countries. And I had a panic attack. I was sitting there comfortably like I am now. I started feeling really, really hot and knot in my stomach, and I went to wipe my forehead and it was drenched in water. I was having a panic attack. And there was about 20 or 30 other police officers there. They all knew me. They all knew I was involved in a shooting. But the first thing I thought of is I have to hide this and I have to fight through it. I have to hide it and I have to fight through it. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having a panic attack. So I did. And then I completed the training. I went on a couple of days off and then I went back to work. Now, I was a detective at the time and I was working a patrol shift for somebody because it was New Year's Eve and somebody wanted off to celebrate the New Year's or to be with their family. And it was at 11 a.m. I remember getting in my squad car and I sat down and I thought, forget it, I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't think I wanted to quit being a police officer. I think I wanted to quit coping the way I was. It wasn't working for me anymore. I really needed help. So I reached out to one of my supervisors and I told him, hey, I'm going to quit. I need you to come in with my chief. Now, this was a different chief than the chief that was with me during my shooting because that chief had retired. But this chief I admired, respect, support. He supported me. And we went in and talked, and he said, no, you're not quitting. Just go home. Reach out when you're ready to come back to work. So I did that. And I think about a couple of weeks had passed, and I said, I'm ready to come back to work. And he said, well, what you need to do is you need to get a psychological evaluation, a fitness for duty test. And I'm like, okay, I support that because I had been sharing my mental health journey with other people. So I'm like, yeah, let's go do this test.
Sure.
And I remember the day that I was driving to the police department psychologist. While I was driving there, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to lie. I'm going to try to beat the test. I'm going to lie because I'm okay. I can go back to work. So I'm going to lie and try to beat the test. And then when I got there, I'm sitting in the waiting room and I thought to myself, you know what, Adam, the only way that you're going to get the right kind of help is if you're honest. You need to be honest. You need to be truthful. And that's what I decided to do. And the test was from 9 a.m. till about 4 p.m. Yes. Multiple tests. And I actually have the results of the examination right here. And I was deemed unfit for duty. And I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, acute stress with dissociative features, PTSD. And I remember when I read this fitness for duty evaluation, I started crying.
Yeah.
Not only because I was sad, but also because this answered so many questions that I had over the years. I read this and I'm like, this is me. This is explained everything that I went through. So then I'm thinking, okay, what do I got to do now to get better? These are the answers. Let's work on getting better. So I requested a 90-day leave of absence from the police department, which was approved. And then what I did was I was going to therapy 2-3 times a week. And it was really working. I was getting better. The psychologist even said, you know, this was in January, February. And he said, you know, 6 months short-term disability, you have a good chance of going back to work in August. Let's work on that. And I was working on it. I was not skipping any counseling sessions. I was doing all kinds of therapy. I was like, wow, I'm really getting better. I can feel it. I'm a different person. I'm getting better.
Yes.
And then I remember at the end of my leave of absence, the chief called me into his office and he told me, we're not extending your leave of absence. You can either resign or you're going to be terminated. And I thought, but this is work related. And I chose not to quit, and I was terminated. Now, I remember walking into my office because I was a detective. I remember walking in my office and packing up my stuff and leaving the police department that day. I didn't know what to think. I had been at that police department for 14 years. I love being a cop. I love being a police officer. And what if I would have went home and killed myself? Because all my life I wanted to be a police officer. What if I would have just went home and said, forget it, I'm done, and killed myself? That's a possibility. Nobody followed up with me to make sure I was okay. Nobody checked on me. And how do you do that when this person isn't your employee anymore? I don't know. But I had worked there for 14 years. I had never been disciplined. I had never been suspended. I received awards. I received medals for bravery and for other stuff I did. And then I felt like I was just completely abandoned. Even the people I worked with didn't call me, didn't text me, didn't check on me, didn't email me. I was completely ghosted by everybody. And I love these guys and gals. We went on life and death calls together. We went to training together. They knew my family. They knew my daughters. They helped me move. And then all of a sudden, it's like they just washed their hands of me. And that, even now, it hurts. Yeah. It really hurts because I was with those folks for 14 years. That's a big chunk of my life. And then that's when I really needed the support. I really needed the support. And I didn't get it. I felt like I was just kind of kicked to the curb and disposed of. And I was at a loss. I was even more depressed. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. So that still hurts. That really hurts still to this day, because got a lot of good memories there. And like I said, I love them guys and gals. We had a lot of good memories, and we went through a lot of stuff together. And then all of a sudden I'm struggling and I need help. And I feel like I was just disposed of, like abandoned. And that hurts, especially when you feel you have these strong personal or professional relationships with people, and then they just disappear on you. That hurts. That really hurts.
So loss of bonds, man. It's like a breakup almost, right?
Yeah, you're right. Definitely. You're right.
I mean, and the reason I kind of spoke to that as well is because we often speak around suicide and that, but we rarely link it to job loss, right? And a lot of it is people lose their jobs, careers, and it's like my whole life is over because this is what my whole life has been. Right. So I wonder then, what do you have any thoughts around, how I guess mental health is handled around law enforcement, or maybe not just law enforcement, but just in employment in general, right? That, hey, if this happens and I end up with some mental health issue that happens from, or that stems from the work I do, then why would I be terminated for something that's caused by this very same job? Could we at least then, have some kind of policy that protects me as the employee here? How do you see that?
Yeah, the police department I work at right now, my chief is great. His name's Sean McGee. He supports me 100%. I remember in my interview, I started my interview off by just telling him, hey, this is what happened. You're going to find out in a background check. I just want to put this all on the table and let you know. And, our police department has a lake patrol, so we can go out on the boat. We have a lake in our community. And the chief and I were out on the lake one day, and he goes, you know what, Adam, I know that you speak about mental health. I support you. If you want to continue to speak and share your experience, I support you. Go right ahead. You can even wear your uniform if you want to. Wow. I was like, this is great. And he's real, and he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. I mean, he really means it, and that means a lot. It's difficult, and you're absolutely right when you talk about, all I knew was to be a police officer. Yes, sir. All my life, all I wanted to do was be a police officer, and now I lost that job. I lost my identity. I lost what I did every single day. So I felt like it was over. What else am I going to do? All I know is being a police officer. Who's going to hire me now? If I go to another place, they're going to look at it and be like, well, he's a mental case. Nobody's going to hire me. And even at the time, I didn't even know if I wanted to be a police officer anymore after everything that I went through. I think there's still a stigma in the police profession, even in firefighters, even in ambulance, even in first responders. It is getting better because more of us are speaking about it. and getting the right kind of help, and more police departments are getting police officer support teams, which is important. Because when it comes right down to it, a police officer, a firefighter, an ambulance driver, anyone, regardless of what your job is, they're not going to reach out unless they know that they're not going to be judged, that they're not going to be criticized, that they're not going to lose their job. You know, you talk about losing your job. You know, when I was on my leave of absence, I didn't get any kind of pay. I didn't get disability pay. I had to collect unemployment, which was hardly any money. My finances suffered. I had to file bankruptcy later, years later, because I couldn't catch up with my financial responsibilities. And that's something that I struggle with too, because I pay health insurance. I pay into health insurance. So when I have something like this and I really need financial help, it's there for me. It wasn't there for me. And I truly believe if I would have broke a leg, broke my arm, if I would have had a physical injury, I would have received financial, help. But because it was mental health, I think everybody judged, and hey, we want to make sure it is. We're not helping you financially. This was work related. Everybody knows it was work related. I wasn't making this up. People knew me. I was involved in a shooting. But towards the end, I really needed financial help, and I needed support and help from other people, and I didn't get it. And when it comes right down to it, people won't reach out unless they know that they're going to get help and they're not going to lose their job, their livelihood. Something they've been doing for years, something they've been training for years, something that's been a dream job as far back as they can remember. They're not going to reach out. They're going to try to fix it themselves. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be stigmatized. And unless they know that they're really, truly going to get help and support, they're not going to reach out. They're just not. I didn't for years. So
I can hear that, Adam. Right now you're hitting hope for me, because I recently, about, was it 2 years ago now? 2 or 3 years, I lost a job. And it's not like I was there for 13 years, but I was part of, the community, right?
Sure.
But while I was going through it and realizing that, man, there's some things happening here, and I could sort of see the end coming, I couldn't reach out to anyone and say that, hey, this is what's going on. Although I'm there telling my coach whenever I go for my sessions, and she even said to me one time that, KG, man, are you unraveling right now? And I'm like, shit, I don't know, because there's just something happening, but I don't even know how to talk about it with my own team, right? So I think it's this idea of, if we don't have psychological safety in our teams or in our jobs, then our mental health is really going to struggle. It's actually going to take more of an impact, or more of a harder impact, than if we do have that safety, for me to be able to say that, listen, I haven't been okay for the past, I don't know how long, and this is why I'm not performing well at work. So, now that you are now captain, you're now in a leadership position, I wonder how that experience now feeds into how you are now leading the men and women who are working, in your team.
I think it's great. I think it makes me a better leader. I think it makes me a better police officer, because I'm an example. My story is a story of resilience. I'm lucky to be where I am today. And because of the grace of God, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I share my experience with other people. And I even say, hey, if you don't want to talk about it right now, you want to talk about it later with me, let me know. I won't judge you. I won't even give you my opinion unless you ask for it. I support you. I went through hell, so I get it. And even if you and I have different experiences, we're still connected somehow. I'm a police officer, but I can share my story with you, and there's still some connection. I can share my story with somebody else that maybe doesn't have a job, or that works in a different profession. And you can still understand a little bit of what I'm talking about. And I tell other police officers, other sheriff's deputies, firefighters, it's okay to talk about your mental health. If you need somebody, reach out to me. I'll listen. I won't judge you, and I'll keep that private. I'm not going to go tell somebody about what you told me. But they also need to know that that I won't do that. They need to be confident that, because a lot of people will
Exactly.
say, they'll be like, oh yeah, you can talk to me about anything you want. I won't tell anybody. And what's the first thing they do? They run and go tell somebody else.
Exactly.
And if they think, even if they think a little bit that that's going to happen, they're not going to talk to you. They're going to keep it inside. They're going to keep quiet. They're going to try to fix it themselves, and they're going to continue to suffer. But what I do as a leader, I reach out to other police departments in my county, even people that I don't lead, even people that don't work with me or work for me, because there's so much to compare. Hey, we're all in this police job, police profession. I know other police officers struggle. I know there's stress. I know some of them are depressed. That's okay. It's okay. That's kind of normal because of what we deal with and what we see every day. So it's okay to reach out, and you can reach out to me.
Yeah.
You can reach out to other people, but I just want to share my experience with others as a leader, as a police officer, to show them that, hey, Adam does it. I mean, they don't have to do it like I'm doing it. They don't have to be on a podcast. They don't have to, go out in public and skip around and say, hey, I got mental health problems. And you don't have to do that. There's other ways, but I want to help normalize it. I want them to be comfortable about doing it, because if they're not, they're, like I said, they won't reach out. They'll continue to suffer in silence. And some of them might decide to take their own lives. And I think a lot of people die by suicide because they don't know what to do. They think they've lost everything, and they just give up.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to keep going. It really, really is. It's difficult to keep going. It's difficult to see that light at the end of the tunnel, but it's there. Even if it's a little pinhole, it's there. You just got to keep going. And some days you have a lot of energy and you keep going. And some days you just lay on the couch and don't do anything. But it's okay. It's part of the process. Just try to keep going and reach out for help when you can.
I love that, that being comfortable with stillness. This world that we live in now is we're constantly on the move, right? We're constantly working towards something. The kids are growing up. There's a job that I'm chasing. There's a paycheck that I want to get.
Right.
There's another podcast that I want to make. The stuff I need to promote on social media. But we're always moving. But unfortunately, or fortunately, there are those moments where you actually just need to sit with whatever it is that you're going through and let that teach you something, right? Because I believe that there's a lesson in all of this, as hard as it might seem at times. And, I know this very well, Mr. Adam, because I've been through quite a few things. If you've been listening to Manned Up Conversations, I've shared, here and there. So to our audience listening to this, and I love what you shared there in saying that, you tell men or people that you work with that you can reach out to me, because that's what we encourage here is you are the space. It starts with you, right? You don't have to be on a podcast. You don't have to organize a whole group of 20, a whole event with booking a whole convention center and all of that. It starts with the friends that you know, the small group of men that you know, or one friend that you know. So I love working that, and I love your stop the threat and stop the stigma that I'm seeing there. That's another message to, I suppose, more than just law enforcement, but to all of us, right? And the threat is the threat of remaining silent, remaining quiet, and hoping that, or thinking that you can do this all by yourself.
Right.
But, you want to add something there?
Well, you're absolutely right, KG. I mean, you don't have to be on a podcast. You don't have to be on a radio station. You don't have to be on TV or the news, with technology nowadays, you can send a text message to somebody like, hey, KG, I'm struggling today. Can we talk later? You can send an email. You can write a note and pass it to somebody. If you're not comfortable doing the face-to-face like we are right now talking, technology is great for that. There's so many other options available to you to reach out. And if you're not comfortable talking to a friend or a family member and you want to talk to a stranger, you can do that. There's people out there that genuinely want to help you. There are. And not because they're getting paid for it, but they do. I experienced that when I went back to work after my shooting. There were members of the community, complete strangers, that came up to me and said, hey, Adam, were you the officer in the shooting? And I said, yeah, that was me. And they're like, we prayed for you. We prayed for you at home and at church. We wanted you to do better. We hope you were doing okay. Can I give you a hug? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know this person. They're a complete stranger, but they cared about me. They wanted me to be okay. So there's so many ways to reach out. You know, try to find a way that's more comfortable for you. If it's text messaging, if it's a letter, if it's an email, if it's face to face, there's so many different ways to do it. And it's not easy. It really isn't easy. I mean, I didn't reach out for years, so it's not easy, but it's so important. It's just so important to reach out.
Powerful message, man. It's not easy, but it's definitely important.
Right.
And I love that. And you know, we now at the tail end of it. And I have this, you've given us so many good topics and good ideas to kind of just work on ourselves and just creating that space for ourselves. But there's this question that I like to ask at the end. And what is the one thing for men that they can do for themselves to be healthy? You know, whether it's to be healthy, to be good people, just to be okay being a man. You know, what's the one thing that you could say, yeah, just affirms you as a man? Yeah.
Be honest with yourself. I mean, be honest with yourself, with who you are. I mean, we can always talk, hey, you can go for a walk or eat healthy, but be honest with yourself. You're still a man if you're struggling with mental health. You can still be macho and you can be tough and you can be strong if you're struggling with mental health and you need to reach out and get help. Getting help, that's a strength. Reaching out for help is a strength because it's not easy to do. It's not, or more people would do it. So as a man, if you need help, please reach out. It's okay. You're still going to be a man. You know, as police officers, we wear these tactical vests that protect us physically from bullets, from knives. But as a man and as a police officer, we need to take the vests off. We need to take the vest off and take care of our mind, because physical health is connected with mental health. You're still going to be a man. I think you're going to be stronger for it. I mean, I know you're going to be stronger. I'm stronger for it because I finally was able to reach out. So if you're a man, reach out for help. It's okay. You can even do it in private. You don't need to let everybody know. But please reach out. That's a strength. That's not a weakness. And you'll still be a man. You'll still be strong, and you'll be stronger for it. I think. I truly believe you'll be stronger for it when you reach out for help.
Man, I love that, man. And that is such a beautiful ending to our conversation. I have been here with Captain Adam Meyers. This is a very deep conversation. I think when thinking about law enforcement, like I said in the very beginning, maybe some people have a very different perspective, right? But maybe based on the music that I listen to and the protests that I see on social media, that there's a very negative relationship. But I think this episode here, for me, what it's done is it's kind of humanized men in law enforcement a little bit more, and for me to be more cognizant of what they're going through. Maybe I might ask tomorrow, how are you doing, sir? You know, how's your day going? How have you been? You know, as opposed to, can you just go catch that guy, right?
Right.
So can we be a little bit more, a bit more sensitive to the men that we see in uniform, because they are there to protect us, they are there to help us, but we are also there to help them too, and check on their health and check on how their days are going. So Captain Meyers, I really appreciate you for your bravery in putting your voice out there and sharing your story. And although you're all the way from America, like I said, I hope my police officers here in South Africa and everywhere across the world get to hear your story and reach out to you. You know, I wish you do more workshops. I want to see you traveling. Maybe you'll get off the badge at some point and, you know, become an activist for all the policemen and women out there. But more importantly, I think for also your daughters to see you here today, healthy, having this conversation, for reaching out to me. I felt quite honored, you know, why would this man reach out to this guy in South Africa? But to have this conversation, it's taught me a lot, and I hope to pay it forward to the ones that might get inspired by this. Maybe men want to get into law enforcement too. Well, here's a lesson on mental health for yourself and for your family to maybe think a little bit more about the job that you're about to get into. But from myself, Captain Adam Meyers, I appreciate you for everything that you have contributed. We'll see you on the flip side. Peace and love.